Howdy Texans, and welcome to the live segment of the Texan Roundup. We are excited to have our freshmen, our new students, and all of our families here to see us this evening. And so, Mr. Barnhart, you've got a little information about this evening and some of the resources for our freshman students?
Yes, ma'am. This is part 2 of Texan Roundup, like Ms. Jackson said. And so part 1 was a recorded video that we filmed last week and we sent out in an email. Also in that email, you received basically a survey, a parent and student survey, so that you could submit questions and any concerns you have, and just an opportunity for the counselors and administrative team to get to know the child a little bit as well. So if you have not seen that, we've had a lot fill that out, but if you have not seen that yet, then try to go back in that email and find that. So because we want to get to know the students in that manner as well. And so you've also received a link to some Flipgrid videos in which there are recruiting videos recruiting these new students to join organizations or athletic teams and sporting events and stuff like that. And so those were all resources that you received in an email. That video, part 1 of the Texan Roundup video, included a lot of information, some pictures of the building, some landmarks to navigate around in and everything, but also some information to introduce you to our team tonight that's with us. And like I said earlier, there were a lot of questions, there were a lot of concerns also in the survey that we received, and we are going to address the concerns. We're also going to answer a lot of questions here, but some of the concerns that were common that among a lot of people that submitted on the survey were just concerns about extracurriculars and athletics. The transition to in-person learning when we go back to the building in 3 weeks. The lack of social interactions due to the remote learning the first 3 weeks. Just the uncertainty of everything that's going on. The adjustment for new students to Northwest High School, and like we said, we're going to try to make that as seamless as possible. And then the most important one, or the one that we got a lot of, is just the overall safety of students in the building when we transition back. So, Ms. Jackson, those were a lot of the concerns, and take over.
All right, very good. Well, and the big thing is we want to ease those concerns as much as we possibly can. You know, anytime you transition into a new building, a new campus, then there is the issue of the change from a place that you're accustomed to a place that is brand new to you. And so to be able to do that after having been in your homes for so many months is a challenge. And so we're trying to help you out by giving you kind of a leg up on that. As you get ready to go into remote learning next week, I hope you have the opportunity to kind of get to know a little bit about us, get to know a little bit about the school, and that we can ease your mind as you make this transition, and then ultimately to the great day that we get to welcome you back onto this campus in person. So we're really excited about that, and I hope you find this evening beneficial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to Dr. Botter. She gets our first question. So Dr. Botter, the question was sent in: how can I see my remote learning schedule?
Your remote learning schedule, your own personal schedule, or are they talking about
just the general? Yeah, the general.
Which our bell schedule for the first part of school. So the bell schedule will be listed in at least 4 places. It's going to be listed in the district's Return to Learn website because it's a common schedule for all of the comprehensive high schools. It will be on our campus webpage. It will be sent out tomorrow in the campus newsletter, and your teachers should have it posted on their Moodle page as well. You may find it in other places, but those 4 places it'll be posted.
Okay, so question number 2 was a very common question. Like I said, it was also a very common concern. And so this question is going to be for Mrs. Railsback, an assistant principal here. Are we canceling sports, and how will sports practices and games work during remote learning? And can fans attend sporting events if we do begin them?
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. So an email was sent out from the district executive director of athletics, Joel Johnson. He was on camera and was in our NHSTV studio, and he spoke to parents and students about what that is going to look like. At this time, we plan on having sporting events, and we plan on having fans able to attend them. Please keep watching for more information on that, but at this time, our district is planning on having those events.
And as a sports fan myself, I am excited to hear that. I love getting to go see our students play. So this next question is for Mr. James, one of our new assistant principals. Mr. James, how will lunches work when we are back with in-person learning?
That's a great question, and so I'm sure you guys will be plenty hungry and going through the day and matriculating through your classes. You'll want to know what lunch looks like. We will be observing CDC guidelines, and so we'll be trying to ensure 6 feet of distance between our students. at all times, and that includes the cafeteria. We're also currently kicking the tires on some policies and some processes that'll help us to make sure that that you all have the opportunity to pre-order your food so that you don't have to worry about the lines and some of the distance requirements. So it'll look a little bit different, but again, we have to follow CDC guidelines to make sure that everyone is safe.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. James. Our next question is going to be for Mrs. Natalie Edelman, our lead counselor at Northwest High School. And so, Mrs. Edelman, how and when will students get their schedule?
Okay. Schedules will be available next Tuesday, August the 18th. You can view them in your Home Access Center or HAC. Also, we know some of our new families don't have access to that just yet, so the schedules will also be emailed to parents and students.
Very good. So our next question is for Ms. Bissett. Ms. Bissett, will STEM send out specific information, and does STEM have curriculum for freshmen that will require a student to actually go physically to the school building?
That's a great question, Ms. Jackson. Yes, STEM will be sending out specific information directly to students and families. And after September 11th, the STEM Academy courses will support both in-person and remote learning in synchronous environments. So remote students will be working to Zoom into their classes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bissett. Next question is going to be for Mr. Ruben Dominguez, who is another new assistant principal on campus who oversees safety. And so a lot of his questions are going to be concerning safety and easing your mind on some of those safety concerns that you had. And so, Mr. Dominguez, what safety precautions are in place other than requiring masks once students return to the building for in-person learning?
That's an excellent question. Well, all staff will receive training regarding COVID-19 protocols, safety protocols, and of course that is per CDC guidelines. In addition, we will also have many procedures in place to make sure students are safe. For example, we will have signage throughout the building to make sure that our Texans are reminded to wear masks, to social distance. Teachers will have sanitizer in the classrooms for all their students. Between passing periods, the desks will be disinfected and wiped and cleaned. And the clinic, of course, will also have very specific protocols in place to keep our students safe.
That's good to hear, Mr. Dominguez. And you guys are not aware of this. We learned this today. Mr. Dominguez got to spend about half a day, I believe, in training, just learning about all of the different protocols that'll be in place once we do return to in-person learning. And so he's working hard to learn all of those things, and then we're going to work to pull all of those things together and make them make sense at Northwest High School for our students. So we're excited about that. If you don't know, Mr. Barnhart is one of our 9th grade assistant principals, and he put all of this program together. So I have some freshman questions for Mr. Barnhart. And so one of them is, will high school tours be available for freshmen and for new students?
Yes, our hope is absolutely to get the students into the building when we can. And so of course, we do have to follow CDC guidelines and the amount of people in the building and everything, but we did not have 8th grade tours, which is usually the first time that our 8th grade students get into the building and get a chance to experience Northwest High School. That's usually second semester last year. Obviously, because of COVID-19, we didn't get to have that. We didn't get to have an actual Texan Roundup in the building today like we had hoped. And so, but our hope is absolutely to get the students in the building so they can get familiar with that. So we are working on a plan that sometime between when remote learning starts to when we come back into the building on September 14th to set some kind of situation up where students can come in, tour the building, whether it looks like we do a smaller amount each time and set it up on a rotation. But absolutely, we're going to get that information as soon as we have that plan in place, when we're able to follow the guidelines and get the students back into the building, because we do definitely want to make that transition seamless for them, and we want them comfortable when they're back in the building. If you have not watched part 1 of the Texan Roundup yet, there were a lot of pictures. I tried to include a lot of pictures on that so that people can at least see entrances, offices, landmarks throughout the building, what the cafeteria looks like and the setup and everything. So I definitely recommend going back and watching that if you have not yet, just to kind of get familiarized with the building and everything, okay?
And I'm going to add that as the mom of a 9th grader myself, I actually am bringing a 9th grader to Northwest High School this year. I'm excited about that. But even though my kiddo has been able to follow me around all over the building, she still wants a tour of the building. She wants to have that experience of that freshman tour. And so we realize the importance of that, and we want to provide that for our students.
Okay.
Good.
Well, Ms. Jackson, I have a question for you, and you're going to notice that because you are the principal, you're going to get a lot of the hard questions. And
Yay!
So this first one, how will the transition from online learning to being physically back in school be handled by the school? And will these restrictions and rules carry over the whole year or just the fall semester?
Well, it's kind of hard to predict the future of how it'll look the entire year because we don't know the circumstances that'll occur. Certainly any kind of safety protocols that we put in place, we want to keep those going as long as we need them. That transition back to the building after having been out of the building for so long is going to require us to train our students. We're going to have to do a lot of things to help get them prepared for that. And it's also going to require us to train our teachers and train ourselves. And so it'll be important that we do a lot of things to teach expectations, to give clear expectations, and to make sure that we're following all of the safety protocols that are in place.
Okay, very good, thank you.
So I have another one for Dr. Botter. It's Dr. Botter's turn. So Dr. Botter, what are the expectations for remote learning for all students through September 11th? And then I'll have a follow-up question for you after that.
Okay. From August 20 through September 11, all students will be learning from home. So we're in a completely remote situation. So we have A-day, B-day schedule, and so we'll meet for periods 1, 3, 5, and 7 on A days, and we'll meet for periods 2, 4, 6, and 8 on B days. So you'll have 4 classes a day to attend on Zoom with your teacher. So when you get your schedule, you'll need to go into Moodle and you'll need to follow the schedule you get for yourself, the 8 classes, the 7 classes that you have in the day, 8 periods that we have. And so you'll follow that schedule and you'll attend 1, 3, 5, and 7, and then 2, 4, 6, and 8. And that's going to be through September 11th. And then on September 14th, those who've chosen to come in person will be in person, and those who've chosen to continue remote will continue remote. There will be some changes at that point.
Now, Dr. Botter, after we come back to the building, but there are going to be students who, we come back to the building, there will be students who have chosen remote learning to continue. What will be the expectations for the students who continue in remote learning?
For the students who are going to continue in remote learning for the semester or the year, however it goes, again, we can't predict the future. So if you're continuing in remote learning, you will be attending class in one of probably 3 different ways. It just depends on what course we're offering in which manner. You will be remote, going from home. You're considered a remote student, but your instruction may be delivered by zooming in to a live class. It may be delivered through Edgenuity, which is an online asynchronous course, or you may have a fully remote teacher and you would Zoom every day in a situation where it's just remote students with a teacher. So depending on which courses you're taking and how those courses are able to be offered, you may have a combination of those methods of delivery. And we will train you some more on that. If you're a remote student, you'll be getting some additional information from us prior to September 14th so that you're comfortable with and understand how to continue schooling after the A-day, B-day go away, and you're attending all of your classes all day, every day.
Okay, another question for Ms. Railsback. And so Ms. Railsback, this has to do with technology, but it also kind of piggybacks the remote learning topic a little bit. So will we have a certain time that we have to be on our Chromebooks for online school? And the second part of this question is, do we have to be online every hour?
Thank you. So like Dr. Botter said, we do have a schedule. The schedule will be posted online. So on A days, you'll have classes 1, 3, 5, and 7. There is a time on that schedule that you have an opportunity to zoom in the class. The expectation by our campus and the district is that you attend that Zoom time. After each class period, there is a period of time that you have to work on the assignments that you just received in that Zoom hour. So yes, you are expected to zoom in during those periods during the day. We understand things happen and you might not be able to Zoom at that time. We have safety nets in place to help you out with that, to find that instruction at a later time and find their Moodle assignment at a later time during that day.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah. So I have a good one for you, Mr. James. So Mr. James is in charge of making sure that our facilities are properly utilized. He also looks over how classrooms are set up, how classrooms are assigned. That's one of his responsibilities as one of our assistant principals. So Mr. James, the question is, how will classrooms be set up to accommodate social distancing? And is 6 feet of distance between students really possible in the classroom?
Another another great question. And so I know Mr. Dominguez spoke briefly about the fact that we'll be ensuring we disinfect things between classes. But I want to assure you guys that that when we get to the classroom setup, we're going to ensure that that 6 feet of distance is put into play. We've taken some measurements, and we can assure you that there is a way to distance those desks and make sure that we have the correct CDC distances between our desks. And so we'll also have, the provisions about masks and ensuring that we're just keeping our distance. And so I think it'll be good when you see the way that the classrooms are set up to understand that we have done everything humanly possible to keep the students as safe as humanly possible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. And I actually went into some classrooms today to go visit some teachers, and they had already set up their classroom to try to accommodate that. And so the teachers are aware, and they're working hard to make sure that they meet that accommodation as well. So next question is going to be back to our lead counselor, Mrs. Natalie Edelman. What do I do if I want to make a change to my schedule once I receive that?
Okay, I'm going to focus on that word want. We're kind of past the point of wanting schedule changes. The deadlines have passed for that, but any need-based schedule changes are going to be like if you are taking a class, we put you in a class maybe that you finished in summer school, if you're a remote learner and we need to change a schedule, those types of things. There's very limited reasons. You can check the academic planning guide on our website for the reasons that we would be doing schedule changes right now. If you think you do need a schedule change at this point, then you're going to email your student's counselor, and we do need the parents to email those requests. We won't accept requests from students. And then at that point, the counselor will email you a link to a Google document that will ask you the reason for your change and what we need to do, and we'll do our best to accommodate and take care of all of our student needs. We aren't unfortunately able to accommodate lunch requests or change any electives or anything at this point.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. Can I change my lunch? I want to be in a different lunch. My friends are in this lunch. That one's hard to accommodate. We've got 2,000 students in our building this year, and so it's a challenge to get everybody into the classes they want, and that's got to be the priority, is getting the students into the classes that they need so that they can progress through the curriculum. So now I'm going to get Miss Bissett with a question, and this is a great one for Miss Bissett. I don't know if you know this, but Miss Bissett used to be a dance teacher in our building, and she was a dance teacher before she became an assistant principal. So this will be a great one for you, Miss Bissett. How will fine arts and extracurriculars like band and theater and dance work at this time?
Well, just like Ms. Rosbeck said about athletics, we're hoping that we're able to keep everything going just as smoothly as possible. They're still planning on having all their practices, all of their performances. And Dr. Kevin Lacefield, who is our Executive Director of Fine Arts, he also did a video, like Ms. Rosbeck spoke of Coach Johnson, and it is on the NISD Return to Learn. So there's a lot of information in that, so check that out.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Railsback. And so next question will be another safety question for Mr. Dominguez. Mr. Dominguez, just as we are socially distanced tonight in the studio, and so one of the questions that came in frequently was, will we be required to social distance while we're on campus?
That's another excellent question. Yes, we will. And again, we will be following CDC guidelines, and we will have processes and procedures in place to aid us with that. And we also ask our parents to have those conversations with our students as well.
Okay.
All right, a freshman orientation and new student orientation related question for Mr. Barnhart. So Mr. Barnhart, a student asks, how do I get a school ID? What do I do if I don't have an 8th grade ID for the beginning of school? And do remote learning students need an ID?
Yeah, those are good questions. In part 1 of Texan Roundup, definitely covered this, suggested to 8th grade students to continue to wear their 8th grade ID until we're able to get them their ID. Normally by this time we've set up our school photos. We have a date in mind usually at this point so that we can take yearbook photos, and then in turn from that yearbook photo we turn that into a school ID. However, we're working with Glamourcraft, which is our company that we set up the school IDs and the yearbook photos with to try to solidify a date. They also, just like any outside business, they have to follow guidelines and CDC requirements and so forth. And so we're trying to find a date at this time and try to get that set up with our yearbook sponsor and those that are going to be over that. Because yes, we absolutely do want to have a yearbook. We absolutely do want our students to have student IDs. And so what I encouraged in part 1 of Texan Roundup the 8th grade students to do is to continue to wear their 8th grade ID. Returning students continue to wear the old ID that you don't have. One option that we do have is we can go back and pull old photos. And that possibly might be how we start the year in generating student IDs, especially for those that don't have them, is pulling old 8th grade photos, or maybe if it's a sophomore, pulling the freshman photo and making an ID from that. For new students, and at this time we do have probably about 116 new students who were not in Northwest ISD last year. And so at that point, we're going to try to get creative on how we can get them a student ID. But yes, we do require that students wear student IDs, and we know that, and so we're going to work really hard to get student IDs done as quickly as possible. Remote learning, if students in remote learning will be required to have a student ID, that's a great question. Hadn't really thought of that to that extent yet, but I would say just because there's always that possibility of coming back to the building or the transition, we would probably try to get something set up to where maybe like an after school hour where those students could come in and get their photo taken so we can go ahead and generate that ID for them.
Now, the only thing about that is if you're at home doing remote learning, I suppose I can't come up to you and ask you where your ID is, so I guess we can't enforce it, right?
And it's not necessarily just the ID, it's the yearbook photo as well, which was why we'd want to get them in the yearbook too. So.
Yes. I will say though, I will add, when you're coming to school, you will need to know this. We do expect everybody to wear their student badge, and we expect our adults to as well. We're all expected to wear our badges. That's kind of part of getting job ready, really, is when we're on a job, we're expected to wear an identification. It's a safety feature, and so this is something that we try to keep up with here at Northwest High School.
Okay, so Ms. Jackson, just like we ask students and staff to wear their ID badge, this next question is, do we have to wear masks once we are in the building? Some students asked.
That is a resounding yes, my friends. So here's the deal. So in the state of Texas, our governor has said everybody 10 and older is going to wear a mask. It is a mask order statewide. In our school district, Dr. Ryder Warren, our superintendent, and he's wonderful, he has made it very clear that the expectation is that we will wear a mask. So there are some exceptions. There are health, medical exceptions that have to be documented with a doctor's note of some sort. We can make those exceptions. But if it's just, I don't want to wear a mask doesn't look cool, that kind of thing, I forgot my mask, we've got a mask that we can bring you. And so all students, all staff, for the safety of everyone involved, are expected to wear a mask. Some folks have said, well, what are you going to do if somebody doesn't show up in a mask? Well, we'll help them out to start out. We're going to, we'll have an extra stash of masks that we can provide a mask for you. If a student gets disrespectful about not wanting to wear a mask, then we'll have to handle that as a disciplinary situation. But ultimately, if students come into the building and don't follow the safety protocols, then the natural and logical consequence of that is that they're choosing remote learning. If we can't be in the building and behave in a way that is safe for everyone, and that includes both wearing a mask and socially distancing, then we're not able to have the privilege of being in the building for in-person learning. And we do have remote learning available for our students, and so we're able to provide that for students who are not comfortable with following the safety protocols. So it's really, really important that everyone who comes to school feels safe. And so if we can't be safe at the building with the safety protocols in place, then we have a really good, robust online learning program that is available for our students.
Okay, very good.
So my next question is for Dr. Botter. Dr. Botter, when will special education students or students receiving special education services receive in-person learning schedule information?
Those of you who need services in the building, you maybe see some special providers that can't provide services online, you will be contacted either by one of your teachers or by Julie Dodson, who is the special ed department chair, to select a time to come into the building. I believe most of you have already done that, and they're contacting you for that schedule, and they'll work you on a rotation so that you have a specific time to be in the building. So you should be hearing from Ms. Dodson or one of your teachers that you may already know about your schedule very soon.
Yes, ma'am. And in part one of the Texan Roundup video, I had included Ms. Dotson's email address. So if you go back and watch that, you can easily get her email address and reach out for those special needs students who want to get that tour in the buildings. Thank you, ma'am. Next question is for Ms. Railsback. Being over technology, this is another technology-related question for you. Students are getting new Chromebooks, and so can you tell us how the students can exchange those Chromebooks, the new ones for the old one for the new one?
Yes, so they were set up at the middle schools, but today was the last day for that. So if you did not have an opportunity to go pick up your Chromebook or swap out an old Chromebook for a new Chromebook, you can do that at the administration building. It is on, if you're looking at the main entrance to the building, it's on the visitor parking, which is on the left-hand side. You just pull up to the outside driveway and they will bring it out to you. You can bring your old one, get a new one, or if you don't have one at all, get one there. This also goes for hotspots. If you need internet connection and you do not have one, you can ask them about a hotspot whenever you drive through the drive-through to pick up a Chromebook.
Okay.
Great, great. So I have a trick question for Mr. James. All right, Mr. James, you're the new guy, so we're going to pick on you with a trick question. So here we go. How are lockers being monitored to ensure safety procedures are followed?
All right, I'm not going to fall for the trick. So you'll be happy to know, or maybe you won't, depending on how many books you have, that you don't have access to lockers on campus unless you're an athlete. And athletes, I want you to hear this. It is important that you observe CDC guidelines. I know you're hearing that word a lot, CDC guidelines, in the locker room. So you need to make sure that you have your mask on. Our coaches are doing a phenomenal job of making sure that everything's disinfected and cleaned at night when you guys go home. Please don't leave your things laying around, because things that are laying around when we're trying to clean up may just be discarded. So most people won't have to worry about the lockers, but those who do have to worry about them should know the process to make sure that everything is how it should be.
Very well done, Mr. James. You did a good job. And I will say, actual conversation in the Jackson home today was, Mom, do you know they're actually having us wear our masks in the locker room? So there we go. That verifies what you said, Mr. James.
Very good. Good job, Mr. James, not falling for that trap question. So, Ms. Edelman, one more question for you. Not schedule related. This is more enrollment registrar type question, okay? So how do I find out if I am enrolled in Northwest High School?
Okay, so if you are a new student, then you are going to call our registrars. If you go to our website, which is nhs.nistdtx.org, click on counseling. There's a list of all the numbers down there. You can either call Ms. Ballett or Ms. McCarley, and they can help you find out if you finished your registration. So our returning students should have gone on to the Home Access Center and completed their new student enrollment and uploaded their proof of residency. And then there's a link on our website for new student enrollment to make sure that you filled out all the documents and everything there. But our registrars are the ones that are your best point of contact.
Okay. Outstanding. Ms. Bissett. So this is a question I get asked frequently at the high school level, and having been a middle school principal in the past, since my past life, this was a really important topic at the middle school. So we'll see how you answer this one. Supplies. What supplies will students need for classes, and is there a supply list?
Well, here in the high school, we don't have a supply list. We expect students to come the first day with pens and pencils and paper, and then each teacher will give them a specific listing of supplies that they'll need for that particular course.
Thank you, Ms. Bissett. And one more question for you, Mr. Dominguez. It's another safety question. Will students be required to take temperature checks when they're at school?
Another excellent question. So I'll rephrase that just to make sure I'm answering it in the way that I think is being asked. So if what we're asking is, will every student that arrives at Northwest High School receive a temperature check before they enter the school? If that is the question, then the answer is no. However, we do encourage our parents to self-screen our students, and if they have any symptoms, we ask that they stay home and they notify the school.
All right, Mr. Barnhart, the question of the evening, okay? How different is high school going to be from middle school?
High school is going to be quite a bit different, and I'm going to go through a few reasons. But first, it's going to be awesome. This is going to be an opportunity to start over. And so if you're coming to us from one of our middle schools, then you're starting over, especially if you're coming from across town for the CMP Academy or the STEM Academy, and you're making all new friends, because that's when we start high school, it's a new beginning. We're starting over from maybe some things that we've done in the past or whatnot, and so we're moving forward. It's a brand new beginning for you when you walk into this building, and that's a good thing for all of us, okay? And so what I would encourage you to do is when you get into high school, just make it the most enjoyable 4 years of your life up to this point. And how we do that is you make relationships and you make connections, okay? And so you're going to make those connections with your friends, with people you meet in classes, with people you sit by in the cafeteria, or you meet in the Java City coffee shop. You're going to make those connections that are going to last a long time, because all of us in here can tell stories about some of our best friends from high school and how we still stay in touch with them and everything like that. And so I would encourage you to choose friends wisely, because these are going to be relationships that last a long time. And they're going to help you make good decisions and as you move forward and everything like that. The next thing, to make sure it's an awesome experience for you, which is why we created those Flipgrid videos, is we want you involved.
Yes.
Okay? Doesn't matter what it is. I want to encourage you to get involved with something, whether it's a sport, a fine art, a theater, anything, a club or an organization, or just some pre-AP classes on campus that we have here. Just find a way to get connected and get involved so that you can make those relationships, make those friendships, and have those meaningful connections that we want you to have. Because when that happens, it becomes not just a school you're attending, it becomes your school. It becomes our school. And that's what we want, which is our theme for this year, the unity. We want us all to be connected, and we want us all to have a place here at Northwest High School. And lastly, to make sure that it's an awesome experience for you, stay caught up. It's going to be real easy to kind of neglect some things when we're in remote learning, but stay caught up, because every class matters from here on out, whether it's for GPA or your graduation plan. So we need you to stay caught up and stay on top of your schoolwork.
Very good. Well said.
Okay, so Ms. Jackson, last question for you. How will cases of COVID be reported? What will happen after cases are reported? And how do you plan to avoid a total shutdown?
Well, okay, I'm going to start actually with the last question, because I think that is the one that we really need to zero in on, and that is prevention. How do we avoid a total shutdown? We do the things that we're asked to do to maintain the safety protocols. So when we ask you to wear the mask, and we all have to wear our masks. When we ask you to socially distance, you have to do that. When we ask you to disinfect a desk or to clean a surface, you have to do that. When we ask parents, when we ask you to make sure that you take temperatures at home, please do that. The only way that we can prevent going back to a shutdown situation again is to do all of the things that the medical professionals are telling us to do so that we don't continue to spread this disease. The reporting of the reporting of COVID cases actually goes through our COVID liaison on campus, and Mr. Dominguez, as our safety and security coordinator, gets to be our COVID liaison on campus. So what happens then, and he actually educated us on this today after he attended his training, is he goes through a process when someone has identified for him a case of COVID. He goes through a research process actually, and goes through the process of tracing student contacts as they've gone throughout their day in the building. So there are lots of things that we have available to help him trace those contacts. Check-ins at various points. We'll have entry points where the students come in. We'll have, of course, attendance in classes. We'll have seating charts in the classroom so that we know what students a student has sat the most closely to. And so there will be a lot of different pieces of that. I'm saying research is an investigation, for lack of a better term. He will investigate who all has been in contact with that student, and then notifications will come out. I think back to elementary school, every once in a while you'd get the head lice letter, and I'm not trying to compare those two conditions by any stretch, but you'd get the letter that says, hey, your kiddo may have been next to somebody who has this. And so it would be something kind of similar to that. You would receive a notification that, without, of course, giving any kind of confidential information about a student's medical situation, but just letting you know that your kiddo was close to somebody who tested positive with COVID. And so from there, we put quarantines in place, safety precautions. The good news is, so far, this has been really encouraging for me. We have had students back on campus for participation in athletic practices of various kinds. We've kept them in small groups, and we've kept them in groups that we're able to keep up with. And we've had all of these safety protocols in place. And one of our groups said a while ago, our athletic coaches have been really good about keeping all of the protocols in place. And we've not had any issues. We've not had to shut down practices, and I'm grateful for that. So I genuinely believe that if we do the things that we've been asked to do, if we follow the guidelines that our district sets forth for us, our district has done a really solid job of pulling all of these things together for us and making sure that we don't open this building without knowing that our students and staff are going to be safe. If we follow those protocols and trust them and trust that process, we shouldn't have any problems. And so I'm very confident in saying that. I wouldn't invite students back to the building if I weren't confident in saying that. And so those are the things that we have to do to avoid having to shut down again. And I think Dr. Warren said it really well in one of his Facebook Lives. He said, we want to have a school year, and we do. We want to have a school year. And in order to have a school year, we've got to follow the procedures that we put in place so that we can keep everyone safe. So.
Well, very good. And as we conclude tonight, I just want to say that there's 8 of us in here who are all very passionate about educating the child, taking care of the safety of the child, and constantly looking out for their well-being. There's 8 of us. We have about 190 staff members on campus who all feel the same way. So parents, we just want to set your mind at ease a little bit on those concerns, as we are going to take care of the child to the best of our ability. And we want to assure that we're going to do everything we can to do that. And so, Ms. Jackson, as we close out tonight, I'm just going to remind them that they did receive an email that had part 1 of the video in it, that had the survey. We do want you to fill that out. We want to get to know the child in that way as well. So fill that out so that we can start building that connection, building those relationships with the students. The counselors are looking at those. Assistant principals and admin team are looking at those. So we're getting familiar with students, even though we haven't met them yet. We kind of feel like we are meeting them through that. So go back and try to find that and fill that out. Watch the Flipgrid videos on how you can get connected and get involved, because those were about 30 recruiting videos on how those programs want you to be a part of their program. So, and that concludes our questions this evening. So.
Yep, and I'll just add too, check out our social media. We've got a good, strong social media presence. Ms. Railsback does a really good job of keeping that informative and updated, and she's put all of these resources on our Facebook page. So we do have a Northwest High School Facebook page. We also have a Northwest High School Twitter account. It's at NHS Texans, and check that out for all of those links and videos and all of that good information as well. Texans, we're excited. We can't wait to welcome you back to campus. In the meantime, we're excited to start remote learning this coming Thursday the 20th. It's right around the corner. And so we're excited to have you here. And I have a thing that I say to my students every day, and I think I said it in that first video as well, but I love you. I miss you. I'm looking forward to having you here, and I think I speak for our whole admin team. No, I know I do. I speak for our entire administrative team when I say we're excited to have you come to Northwest High School. And so we have a little hand sign that we use. We make this look like a Texan, or a Texas shape, I guess. And so Texans, until next time, we'll see you.